Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm Diane Gibbs, your host, and I'm really excited to have Von Glitschka on today. And I didn't ask him if that was how you said his name. I'm just hoping that that's how it is, because that's how I've heard him say it on lynda.com and other things. So Von, thank you so much for being here. You're one of my design heroes, so I'm real excited to have you on.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And if you heard me say it, that doesn't necessarily mean I got my name right.
Well, no problem. So we're just going to jump in. We did have a bunch of people. If you're new, you can actually, over in the right-hand side, you can actually type in questions, and I'll try to get them answered, or I will try to get them asked. Whether or not Von answers them is a whole nother ball game. But, and then I also have a poll going. It says, do you consider yourself an illustrator? So if you can, go ahead and answer that. I'd just like to know. I think that'll be cool to see. Anyway, great to have everybody here. We're going to go ahead and jump in. And we're going to start. Just if you could give us a little bit of your background and tell us where your passion and your interest for design and illustration really began.
It all goes back to my childhood. So growing up, I was always drawn to the kind of subversive form of art, and that came by, I remember a kid in the neighborhood, his dad subscribed to Mad Magazine, and he would get the volume books, the little books with like all that year's stuff in it, and I saw him at the park one day, and he's reading it, and I go, "What's that?" And he showed it to me, and I was like, of course, I was drawn to all the pictures, but as I started reading, I go, "This is awesome," you know, and so I get allowance from my parents, and so I decided to write down to the grocery store or the drugstore down by my house, and I bought one and brought it home. Then my parents got mad because I bought Mad Magazine. It was like, no, that's disrespectful, basically, is what it came down to. And so it got like taken away. And so where some kids like will hide like Playboy magazine, I was hiding Mad Magazine. And so growing up, I would always read those, and that inspired me to draw all the art in there. Sergio Aragones is probably my favorite artist from Mad Magazine. He's the ones that did, like, in the margins, he'd do the little cartoons and stuff. But I go on, and I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I went, I've gone on eBay, and I bought an old Mad Magazine. And these are ones that came out before I was too young to buy this, basically, 1962. So I go back, and I like reading them still. They're fun. I got excited a few years back when the publisher, they've kind of sold out. I forget who they sold it to. I think Topps or something like that. And they came out with an iPad app, and I go, "Oh, great, Mad Magazine on an iPad," and I subscribed to it. It was absolute. It was. They ruined it. It's just.
That's not, always what happens.
Yeah. So Mad Magazine is a big one. Richard Scarry, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the rainy day activity books.
Oh yeah.
That's how I learned color. It's like I remember the way he talked about color, and it was always through the metaphor of animals doing human stuff. So that whole anthropomorphic thing. But another one that wasn't until years later I realized really influenced me a lot was an art director at RCA Records by the name of Jim Flora. My parents had a bunch of, you remember those, there's like a piece of furniture, but you open the top and it had a record player in it and built-in speakers. So my parents had this system like that, and they had all these LPs, and so my dad liked jazz and big band and blues, so a lot of his album cover art was on those LPs from RCA Records, and I just loved the style of the artwork, and I didn't even put the two together until years later, where I kind of discovered him as an illustrator through a blog called Today's Inspiration, and then that made me go, wait a minute, that's why I draw that way, or like why I like to do this. It's because I didn't realize how much he had influenced me when I was a kid until later on. So Those were probably the main influences on me.
So, like,
My mom's an artist too.
what age?
I have a sketchbook that has a drawing of it's like a witch's head when I was like 2, so I've been drawing for quite a long time. Yeah.
So, and if your mom is an illustrator or an artist, then she probably was, encouraging you maybe more, or she taught you some things. What kind of an artist is she?
She does. I didn't really appreciate it growing up because I didn't. I hope she doesn't watch this. She did a lot of tone decorative painting, and I look at it now, and there's some of it that I think is kind of kitschy, but there's some of the stuff she does that's really cool, and I'm like, wow, that's, it's pretty neat. But she's always been creative, whether it's drawing or crafting or anything like that. So, yeah, she's always encouraged me. My dad's probably the least creative person I know, but he's been around other people who are very creative, like my sister and me and my mom, that he just kind of goes with the flow now. He's he let my daughter draw on the back of his head one time with a Sharpie. So my dad's pretty flexible when it comes to creativity. Yeah.
That is pretty flexible. All right, so you worked as a designer at a firm. You were a regular working as a job kind of person. There's like really bad weather, and I see it outside, and it's like hitting the windows, so it scared me a little bit. Sorry about that. And then now you work for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that transition and how maybe your interest in design has changed over the years and how that's affected you as a designer and you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I worked approximately 15 years for other people before I went out on my own, and that's through, I worked in an ad agency here in town where I was an art director. Before that, I worked at Upper Deck. They're the ones that do sports cards, and so I was originally assigned to be part of the baseball team that handled the Major League Baseball license, but coming from a smaller design firm and going to Upper Deck, they were like so slow. It's like I was used to like just cranking out stuff left and right, and I go in there and I just get my work done so fast that, okay, you're done baseball, but here's a NFL project. So I was like a roving designer. I got to work with all the sports teams, and then they give me specialized assignments and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I worked directly with marketing a lot, so that's where I there was one marketing guy I worked with where I learned a lot, and that's how I kind of came to understand and appreciate good marketing, because I really think there's 2 types of marketing. There's the marketing director who, for whatever reason, is such a control freak, it hinders the success of a project. And then there's the other type that realizes their strength but appreciates the strength that the creative team has, and when you work together, it just comes out better. So I work with both at Upper Deck and moving forward. Now, when I came back to Oregon, when I left Upper Deck, is when I was working as an art director, and the way I started my business is I had always thought about going out on my own, but it's a little intimidating to jump ship when you have a mortgage and 2 kids, and so I was like always nervous. I was always doing freelance on the side, but not sure when I was going to make that jump. And it actually was an easy step for me because I caught my daughter's cold, called in sick on a Monday, came in Tuesday about an hour early. It's about 7 in the morning to work, and my boxes were packed. So I got the axe. That's how I started my own business. Is I got fired. So
man, don't get sick.
Yeah. Well, my boss at the time was kind of a micromanager, and everybody in this other firm in town, all those employees were his former employees. So when I was sick, he read my deleted email, and one of the emails was from that firm 2 weeks prior, and they had approached me about, hey, would you want to come work for us? And I turned it down. I'd already turned it down. I wasn't interested, but he kind of freaked out and overreacted and preemptively fired me before he even talked to me. So
Wow.
it's okay. It all worked out good. So that's how I started on my own. Is I didn't really feel like moving to a market where I could find a job. I wanted to stay here, and the first year was a little tough, but after that, it worked out.
How much freelance were you doing before you? Because I think sometimes just doors shut, and it's like you've been having this. It's been laid on your heart that you needed to go, but you just didn't have there wasn't anything, that incentive. It was just that last bit. I had things in my life like that as well. Maybe that was one of those things. How much freelance work were you doing? Like, how many hours a week were you working on, or how many projects per month?
Well, it was right. I was trying to think. It was right just prior to when the .com bomb happened. And so my rep at the time, I was doing all kinds of editorial illustration for like Men's Fitness and a lot of tech companies, a lot of tech magazines. And then literally overnight when the .com bomb happened, 4 or 5 of these magazines that I would do illustrations for them once or twice a month just folded. And so that's, I was seriously considering at that time jumping ship because I thought I had enough work coming in that I could sustain myself, and then that didn't happen, so I just kind of stayed in place. And then when I got fired, I didn't have a choice but to try to find work. So yeah, it worked out. It wasn't a comfortable position for a few months, but it worked out in the long run. I'm kind of glad it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that guy's kicking himself for firing you, but oh well, it
well,
does work.
the awkward part was about 2 years later, I was asked to be on the board for the local college's VC program, and he was the president of the board. And, and then he got nervous, like I was going to stir the pot or whatever, and so we had a lunch and kind of talked through it. So we're fine now. I just saw him a few weeks ago. We're friends, but we just don't talk about that now.
Yeah, that's always good. Were you a big pot stirrer, do you think?
I don't think I am, no. Yeah.
I guess your parents did because you got the Mad magazines, right?
Well, okay, yeah, I've always had, there's always been a snarky side to me, and yeah, I've always liked things that were subversive and kind of counterculture type stuff. It's always intrigued me.
Yeah, well, it keeps things fresh, I think. So, well, Josh wants to know how you transitioned. I think you've answered that, from working full-time for somebody else to freelance full-time for yourself. And he wanted to know any advice you would give somebody in a similar situation.
Well, what did aid it, it wasn't a complete from employment to not having any work whatsoever. I had an art rep, although even though I've had an art rep, I've always told myself not to depend on my art rep. It's just whatever they bring in is bonus, and I think that's important. The other one is, yeah, you want to line up as many freelance accounts as you can before you jump ship, and it's just going to make the transition easier. Don't leap out into the dark without kind of knowing what to expect in some way, Right. So.
And maybe you had made some good relationships and you had built some things already prior.
Yeah, that's the biggest. That's a good point. That's the biggest difference. Is if I would have graduated from school, I always tell students I talk to, don't jump right into freelance. You cannot get better, not just life experience, but but work experience by working for someone else. So my daughter just graduated this year from the local visual communications program at the college I used to teach at, and I considered hiring her, but after talking to a couple friends of mine, I'm encouraged. She's going to be looking for a job in Portland, and I want her to get some experience under somebody else outside of anything that I could influence her on. And then in a couple of years, we can look at it, and if it works out, we can work together. Well, meaning as an employee-employer type thing. I use her on freelance already, so we're doing that. So I always encourage people to get that kind of experience. I think 5 years is a good kind of marker, and then once you get that under your belt, here's one thing: you make all your stupid mistakes under somebody else's dime. You know, I've told this story a few times, but I was working at a small design firm here in town, and it was back when grunge first came out, and it was like the big thing was textures and things looking like crap, but in a good way. And I designed this brochure for some youth event, and we had 15,000 of them printed up for the client. Well, I forgot to make a folding dummy for the printer, and so he printed the inside of the brochure like upside down. And I'm going, how do you even do that? And it's like, and so my boss goes, well, did you make a folding dummy and give it to him? I go, well, no. Well, we're going to have to eat those. And I go, wait a minute, we need to sell this to the client as we did it on purpose. You know, like you open up the brochure, it's more engaging, it makes you want to turn it around and see what's going on, you know. And I had this whole psychology of how we could sell it, and like he didn't want to do that. And so yeah, we had to reprint all those, and so that was probably the biggest mistake I made.
I've had some of those too. I remember my boss yelling at me about something, and she's like, "Didn't you catch that?" And I was like, "Well, I just didn't know they could fix that." And you know, it was like a hickey or a spot or something, and you know, you just don't know. But I agree. I think 5 years is a great amount of time. So you run a business, you write. So I think all your books. I love these books, and they have CDs in the back, and some are older, but I still think they're great. So this whole set, and then the vector book, and I'm sorry, it's shaking my computer, and I know you're working on a new one for that one, but I don't know how you have time to run a business, be a dad and a husband, and write books, you teach, and then you create these videos, and you create products to sell. So what is your secret for getting all that stuff done?
Coffee.
Okay.
No, I'd like to say I clone myself. That would be I fantasize about that sometimes. It'd be fun to, like, okay, here's this job I really want to do just because I want to get paid for it, but I really don't feel like go work on it. You know, just that'd be nice, but that's not your question. So,
if you find out how to do that, let us know.
Yeah, I'm pretty dedicated to like making to-do lists. So every day at the end of the day, I'll make a to-do list for what I want to. At least I'm going to target to get done the next day, and then I really try to get those done. Sometimes things are carried out over time, so I at least try to make a to-do list where I know I can notch off a few things every day. And that's usually the way that I've kind of coordinated and managed my time to work that way. I remember, I forget the guy's name. He had a podcast years ago about marketing and workflow, and he talked about doing to-do lists and stuff. And at the time, I never did that, but I can easily forget things. So once I started doing that, it really helped me to organize my thoughts and organize my workflow. But I have a very systematic approach. when I work on projects. And it doesn't matter if it's a logo design or a character design, or right now I'm doing some somebody's creating Magic, the card game.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating their own game like that, and so I developed their branding, and now I'm doing all the card layouts. And so it doesn't matter what type of project it is. I kind of approach it in terms of organizing my thoughts and the content and how I communicate all the same way. So when I move into a project, it's not like I'm recreating the wheel every time in terms
Right.
of how do I get this started and get it moving. I have a very set way of doing it, and I've kind of refined that over the years, and that's helped me to really speed up my process and not get bogged down in the details that you could be kind of slow you down.
So
I don't
what
know if
about
that answers your question, but
yeah? So what about like for contracts? Do you have somebody else do those, or do you do those? Because to me, that's like a huge time suck.
what I did is I met with my business lawyer, and I explained to him what I do, what an average project is like, and once he understood and fully comprehended the type of work I did and how I work, then he wrote up a contract for me. And the only thing is, I only use that for certain types of clients. Like if I'm working with an ad agency, I never give them a contract because they usually give me the contract and I work directly with them. If it's a small business and I've worked with them already several times, then I don't do a contract for new work. It's usually people that I don't really know, and I'm going to be investing a significant amount of time, so I just do it to protect me. And the way he wrote my contract, which is based off of having problems with this, is if for whatever reason they flake out and they don't want to pay, I can file a claim against them in the local court here in town, and then they have to respond to it locally. Meaning, so it's a lot cheaper for clients who wig out on me to just pay the bill than the cost of having to come here locally and appear in court. So and I'm not sure how he did it, but when he explained it to me, I go, "You can do that?" And he goes, "Absolutely." And I go, well, "Yeah, do that. That's awesome." So I haven't had to use it yet, but I approached him about doing my contract because I've had clients who I've done a lot of work for, and they've ghosted me. One out of New York. And when I tried to collect on them, they turned it around and then threatened to sue me for like $300,000 plus for like they just made up something. And I'm going, how's this work? I did work for you. My friend went into their stores, saw it all on their signage, and then they're suing me because they said I'm making the whole thing up. And basically, they did it just to get me to go away because they knew I couldn't afford to fight it. And so that really kind of opened my eyes to having a contract for people I don't know and they want me to do work for them.
Right. But sometimes I guess for me, I mean, I'm just small business and I do stuff, but I like people that I know, I don't necessarily always have a contract, but if we do another big project or they have like a ton of stuff, they kind of need a quote or, they need something to know how long it's going to take or how much it's going to cost. And so I always think it's good to have something, but there's that scope creep. Like you have an initial and then somebody comes back and then the next couple weeks they want to talk about it again. And now it's like not just one thing, it's 8 things. And, I just re-quote them and I don't start. Do you ever have to deal with that?
Yeah, at the beginning of a project, I'll quote a job and I'll itemize everything I'm going to do for them. And then at some point in the process, if like this just happened on an identity project I worked on, kind of I did all this work for them, and then after I produced all these directions, they come back, oh, we didn't really say this or provide this information. Do you think you can try that? And I go, well, yeah, but that's going to be additional. And because I don't know really how long it's going to take me, I just tell them I'm going to bill you per hour, this much per hour on top of what I quoted them. So that's usually how I handle it. But most of the time, I really try to get them. If they're saying I want an identity, then I'll ask them other questions like, do you need the full package? What else what are you planning on doing? And then that way I can kind of vet out what they really haven't told me yet and say, well, you're going to need this or that. And,
Right. You kind of act as an advisor in a way about what their project will be. All right. So Lenny, oh, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is all the stuff they don't really teach in art school.
Right.
There's a lot about starting your own business. The one thing that I really discovered is there's a lot about just business that you don't learn any other way than running your own business. And I learned a lot and had a really good mentor when I started my business. I joined a small business group here in town, and the guy who headed up that program was a VP at Gallowine and Coca-Cola, and we became friends. And so he would come to my office once a month, and he would just be my business mentor, see what I'm doing, understand. It took a few months to really comprehend how I work and what I do, and then he would audit different areas, like for everything from bookkeeping to how do you invoice, what kind of insurance you have, and he kind of got me in line. Well, this is where you need to improve on, and that really helped me a lot. So encouraging
somebody to have a business mentor, not just a creative mentor, is crucial.
Yeah, somebody who's just really smart at business, and have them kind of look at what you're doing and tell you what aren't you, because it's easy to get so close to it that you don't see your obvious shortcomings. So
So you talked earlier about having like a set way of kind of doing things, and so Lenny asked when you said that, he said, has your set way ever gotten in the way? And then he followed it with this question also, so hopefully we can answer both in one. Have you ever been blocked creatively and need to step outside of that norm? And I am going to guess there's so much stuff in this about stepping out that you have to do that all the time, seems like, or maybe not.
Yeah, like I've been asked to do the tote bag artwork for this year's South by Southwest Interactive, and it's really cool. It's going to be fun. I have this idea in my head, but it's like yesterday, my motor skills, creatively speaking, are still on vacation, I guess, because I could not get anything to align with what I was seeing in my head. I'm going, and that frustrates me. It's like, it's weird because I'm kind of motivated to work on it, but my creative skill sets are like, nope, I don't want to work on it right now. So I run into that. Usually what I do is I'll make notes because I can still write down what I'm thinking so I don't forget it, and then later I'll reapproach it. So for me, one thing I discovered about how I work best, and I don't think there's one way that universally applies to everybody. I think it's really important to understand how you process thoughts, what trips you up, what holds you up. And for me, what holds me up is I really have to get outside of the environment that I create in, go somewhere else, and that's like a coffee shop or anywhere. Go sit in my car in a Safeway parking lot. I've done that at times. And I just sit there and I might listen to music, but I'll sketch or I'll write or I'll just think. And I don't know why, but I'm able to process information and do ideation easier in that kind of environment than if I just stay at my desk.
Right.
And that doesn't always align with my workflow, but I can plug it in at some point. So.
Right. Do you leave some time during the week to be able to do stuff like that?
Um, no, I do that on an as-need basis. So um, a few years ago, I did a whole talk on recalculating your creative routine, and I really try to do that a lot because it's easy. It's easy for me, at least, to get stuck in. It's like the Groundhog Day of creativity,
right?
Where I'm approaching certain things the same way all the time, and I have to mix that up and try to change it because I catch myself. Okay, I'm getting a little too comfortable with this or that, and it's important to try new things and to stay fresh and actually to stay relevant. I mean, things are changing so fast because of the way things work, whether it's the web, whether it's social, or the different kind of mobile apps are even kind of changing the dynamic on how to work. So I'm always trying to at least keep informed on it, whether or not I've actually gotten around to actually doing some of the things yet. Some of the things I haven't. Like I sent you that picture of the cat illustration I did.
Yep.
And that's an example of whenever some idea hits me, I try not to ignore it. I'll just jump on it and see where it goes, because I think when those moments of inspiration hit, I think there's a reason why they're coming up, and you need to kind of explore it and see where it goes. So when I've branded the local TEDx event for the past 3 years, and this one, their theme is called Fearless, and I was going, a clean logo type isn't going to cut it. I have to do something where I'm not sure what the end result's going to be. I have to kind of be fearless in how I explore this. And so I just got the idea of taking tempera paint and just start hand lettering all these letters. This just happens to be the letter A, but after doing A, F, E, S, and L, then I just picked the ones that I like the best just to, here, I'll do it close.
There you go.
So I scanned that in, and then as I was doing that, as I was painting those, I go, God, some of these textures are cool. And so I just started painting these paintbrush swatches and did some line work ones and scanned those in and created art brushes in Illustrator, and then decided I'm going to try to make this look like a gouache painting I did back in art school. And I was kind of surprised. I'd never done that before, and I kind of like how it came out. Now I want to try doing other things that way. So.
And so I think you shared those on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
So I put your feed up in the thing. So I think it's about using different tools regularly, not always just getting stuck into the same thing, because you do get the same ruts if it's the same location, whatever. And I think that is good for any creative, like if you're a writer or whatever. I think you just need to step out. So we had a couple of other questions from the audience. And so this is an Adobe question from Dan. He says, you blast Adobe on Twitter for bugs, some of which are absolutely agreed. It's just, I agree. Do you ever get any response back? you're you, or do they ignore you like they do us peasants?
Okay. How do I diplomatically approach this? Let me put it this way. You've probably heard the term a love-hate relationship. That I can't think of a better way to describe Adobe products than that for me. It's like I love them when they don't hang me up and get in the way of my creative focus. Nothing's worse than I'm working and I'm just creating. I'm in that mode, that zone, and then all of a sudden I'm pulled out of it because of some bug, or the app crashes, or name whatever thing that's annoying about Adobe products at times. And it just irritates me. Now, I try not to overdo it, but I've done that before on Twitter where I just rant because I lose 45 minutes of work because something crashed. And so it's interesting because there's some people within Adobe that I know really well, and I've known them for years, and they like me, but they get highly annoyed when I go off on these rants about certain things. But they can't really argue with it because they know I'm right. It's just, look, if I was heading up the Adobe Illustrator team, I would have that bug list and these are bugs that go back 10 years that they need to fix. They need to just get these locked down, then start working on new features. That's fine. I don't care about new features. That's great. But the core base software shouldn't be such a pain in the ass at times. And it just is. It's like, and I don't know. It's I don't hold my breath anymore waiting for certain things, but I love it when it works, and I really get irritated when it doesn't work, and it doesn't work more times than I care to remember. So I try to be diplomatic about it. There's people at Adobe who are just awesome. I've worked with them. Ironically, I'm working on a project right now. So I think certain things they do really well, and I think other things Illustrator is like the red-headed stepchild of Adobe products, in my opinion. For example, those art brushes I created, that's a great technology, but with Touch now, they need to start integrating it. Like, I was floored that they have an app that you can make a brush and send it to Illustrator, but you can't send it to Adobe Draw and just draw with it. I'm going, what? Why can't you do that? You know, there seems to be a disconnect in some ways, and they'll release a feature, and brushes have been around for well over a decade, and it's an example of a feature that's really great, but they've never refined it, never improved it. It could be so much better. Now, the results I got when I used them to do that cat illustration came out really great, but it's anything but easy to work with. It's not intuitive at all. And if you open up that vector artwork and you've never used brushes, it's going to take you quite a while to figure out, well, what's even going on here. So that's the learning curve for Illustrator is really hard, and that's what motivated me to do the Vector Basic Training book to begin with. Is I just think the core basic vector shapes, there's a methodology to make it easier to build them. Once you have that, then you can colorize them, do whatever you want. It's like, but it's just getting that precision of craftsmanship down. And so, once again, I have no idea if I answered the question or not.
No, I think you did. I think you did. So, okay. Andre had a question. Have you tried any other vector apps? And then Nathan wanted to know if those brushes are going to be available to purchase.
Yes. I don't want to create another account with another service and manage it myself. So I'm having those brushes are going to be sold through my friend's Creative Market account. And once that's up, then I'll post the link on Twitter and Facebook. Other vector, yeah. I have Affinity, and I've worked with it. It's really promising. There's just a few things that make it where I can't really use it for client work because one, I just don't like their build tools. They seem a little wonky to me. They're not bad. I've seen the results some people get, and they look great. But they have a dark interface. I like light interfaces because in my opinion, it makes it really hard to gauge color when everything's black. And so I don't like dark interfaces. That maybe seem like a insignificant thing. For me, it's huge. So I can't use it without a light interface. I had a hard time just seeing some of the icons in it. So I think there's a few UI problems, but the big one for me that makes it so I just can't use it for like logo design is that it has no Pantone support yet. And that's really, I have to have that. When I'm putting together style guides and stuff, I use that all the time. That said, I think it's good that there's companies like them developing stuff. I know of another one being developed that I really can't wait to see, and that's the one that's all I can say, but that's the one I'm kind of waiting for to check it out, so we'll see.
That's good. So, all right. So, Andre actually had another question that he emailed in. So, why did you pick vectors as the main technique for your final artwork? And did you learn it yourself? He asked.
Well, I remember, a lot of people don't know this, but Adobe owned freehand before they rebought freehand and killed it. When I was in Seattle, I was working at a sportswear company at the time, and a friend of ours that we knew invited us to come to his office. It's in the Smith Tower in downtown. And when we got there, he had a computer, and he showed me this illustration of a jukebox, old jukebox he did, and it was a vector illustration. I'm going, how'd you create that? And he goes, it's vector art. It's Illustrator, and this like Illustrator 1. Or, I mean, it was like the original premiere of Illustrator, and so that was my first introduction to. I was thinking, that might go somewhere. So that's the first time I saw it. The next time I saw vector art is a couple years after that, and I was at a friend's shop, and he had Corel Draw, and I'm going, wow, you can just drop type in and just start typing, because at that point I was doing sportswear, and the big thing was everybody had their little horde of press type,
Right.
Stay away, this is mine, You'd run out of an M and you'd use a W and turn it upside down, that kind of action.
Yeah.
So that's when I first got introduced to vector, but I learned traditionally both design and illustration. So when I started working, everything I was doing was traditional mechanicals and separations. And so when things moved digital, I had no problem switching over, because when I was in high school, I used the original Mac Plus, and I used to program in BASIC actually. And I really loved working on the computer, so I was excited when I got a job at a design studio here in town, this back in 1991, and at the time they were leasing like 3 or 4 of these Macs from the local place, and that's when I first started trying Photoshop, and man, I think about it now, it's like Photoshop before you had layers. That was like roll the dice, let's see if this comes out.
I remember Photoshop without layers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little scary.
But the shop was using freehand, and at the time, Aldous had just bought freehand from Adobe. I don't know why Adobe had it, but they had bought it from Adobe, and then no, that's right. Aldous had freehand, then Adobe bought it, then Adobe sold it to Macromedia, and then Macromedia kept developing it, and then eventually they came up with Flash, so they bought Macromedia to get Flash, and then killed freehand. But I used freehand for 15 years, so it's still, in my opinion, it's build tools and some of the methodology for its just core building process. Like in Illustrator, you have this selection tool, this selection tool. You have all these selection tools. In freehand, you could do it all with one tool, and it was just faster and easier. I'm ranting again, but anyway. So I knew I had to switch, and I told you the story before we started doing this, so I won't go into all the story, but I'll just touch on it.
It's a great one.
I was contacted years ago. This is when CS2 was coming out, and an ad agency brought me up to Portland. I met with them. They said, okay, we want you to be one of 3 designers we're having do a poster to announce CS2, and this is going to help market the Adobe software and Acrobat. And we want you to illustrate a poster for us. I'm sitting in the meeting going, these guys don't know that I use freehand. I had Illustrator. I used Illustrator to open up files and save out files, but I never at that point had done anything from beginning to end in Illustrator. It's always freehand. And so I'm going, okay, do I tell them? I'm not going to tell them I want to do this job, you know. So, you know, then I'm thinking in my head, I could go home, I could do it in freehand, copy it and save it out as Illustrator. Then I'm thinking, oh, great. And then there'll be some pre-press guy, and he's ripping the files, and he sees something in the code that says built by Macromedia Freehand. Then it'll be some big conspiracy, and then I'll get in trouble. And so I didn't do that. So I went home and updated to the latest version of Illustrator, and it was just baptism by fire that first week. Actually, one thing people don't know is one of the elements in it, I just couldn't figure out how to do it in Illustrator, so I did it in freehand, copy and pasted it in Illustrator. That was fun, but actually one thing that I found out later, that the way I got that job is a friend of mine worked at the agency. He knew I didn't know Illustrator, so he purposely referred me just to watch me squirm. Sucker, you know. It's pretty funny, but yeah. So that's when I started use. So from that moment going forward, every project that came in, I would kind of think, okay, do I know how to do that? Nope. Okay, freehand. And then it came, and I'd see another project coming in. I go, you know what? I think I can do this all in Illustrator, and then that helped me to start moving in that direction. But yeah.
All right, so we had a couple more questions, and I want to get some of the ones that people had sent in before, because we only have a little bit of time left. So okay. Tim asked, how much, so you do this $5 logo kind of thing, so give people kind of a really quick rundown of what that is, and Tim wants to know how much money you've made from your $5 logo business.
$5 logo is nothing more than a parody branding service. So you send in a name of whatever it is. It could be a kick me sign. Doesn't matter. I'll design a logo in 5 minutes, drawing it on my iPad, and you don't get to art direct it. More than likely, you won't like it. You might not even want to use it, but that's it. That's all it is. I started as a joke a few years ago, and go to 5minutelogo.com. You can see what it's all about. The Facebook group is where I post all the different designs I've done. Those are pretty funny. But that, yeah. So I've gone to like Creative South Conference, and I just was taking 5-minute logos, and people could watch me draw them there and stuff. It's basically entertaining myself, and most people, I say most people understand it's not serious. Not everybody. And so I've probably done over 3,000 now, I think. Yeah, quite a bit. I take orders in, and then on Sunday night is when I usually draw them out and email them out, and then it supports my Starbucks habit.
Well, that's good. So you're not getting rich off of $5 5-minute logos, right?
No, but it does. I just have it linked up to my Starbucks card, so it funds my coffee habit.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so we had a couple more. Jennifer asked, do you mostly scan your work or draw from a Wacom tablet? But you also use Adobe Draw, right? And you just draw straight on your iPad sometimes.
Seeing if I have anything right off hand here. Most of what I create, I'll work out in analog. I'll draw it out. If it's a logo per se, and it's like, let's say it's an eagle or whatever, I'll draw it out pretty much what I know it's going to look like and to guide my building, and then I'll scan it in and build from it. If it's something a little looser, I might, like, especially with icons, I don't worry about drawing those precisely. They're thumbnail sketches, and just to encapsulate the idea and knowing I can build it precisely with shapes inside Illustrator. So it depends what I'm building, but I try to really work out as much as I can in analog. And I still prefer physical pen and pencil on paper. I don't really do a whole lot of sketching on Adobe Draw. I used to use Penultimate, but Evernote ruined it, so I don't use that anymore. But yeah, everything starts in analog, whether it's just ideation or a refined drawing that will guide my vector building.
All right, so Dan asked, Erich said, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right or not, but he said he just wanted to thank you for all your content and your teaching. It totally helps him break out of rut. So I think a lot of people have just reiterated what he had said, so I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thanks.
Dan asks, a different Dan this time, with all of today's online resources available, is an advanced degree in illustration or graphic design worth it if I want to pursue more work as an illustrator?
I think it comes down, if it's worth it to you, then do it. It's like, I know one of the best illustrators I know never went to any school, didn't go to any art school. He literally walked in off the street into an ad agency with a portfolio of paintings, and they hired him on the spot. And if you've ever bought a Hidden Valley Ranch, that illustration on it is his illustration. And if you go to the grocery store, I could point at all this stuff he's done, Celestial Seasoning, just his art's everywhere. So I don't think it's a mandatory thing. I just think if you feel it's going to equip you better and you can afford it, then do it.
All right, so Doc Reed had a question. I think it was in regards to your experience with Adobe. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to switch back. He says, with that experience, were you able to give them feedback about the Adobe software? And I think we kind of talked about this before, but it has helped you to have some relationships with Adobe, right?
Yeah, I kept having a certain issue happen and captured I forget the log file or whatever they called it, sent them the source file, and then they were able to backwards engineer it and confirm one of the bugs. Now, one of the other things that was happening to me, they could never get it to happen, so yeah, they on some levels, God, this sounds so bad. They pay attention. But I think especially the Illustrator team, I don't think Adobe has enough resources in it. I don't think they have enough engineers, and so they don't get to things fast enough. But they do. I've consulted on features before they're ever there, like the pattern feature. That's why if you go into Illustrator, you'll see my patterns embedded within the software. I did those for them, but they kind of had me walk through how I created patterns, and I explained it to them, and they said, well, what would you think of this? And then I told them I liked it. Now, there's still, like everything, there's still issues with the pattern tool that they didn't do, which I have no idea why, but I'm not going to go down that road.
Okay. So Lee asked, what's your point on selling products? What's your viewpoint on selling products and licensing?
I think licensing is a great thing. I can't say I've had a huge success at it, meaning I haven't licensed a lot of stuff, but the ones I have, I wish I could do it more. It takes I know a lot of people who go to Surtex and they take out their own booth and they develop all these lines, and I guess that's the part that has never really appealed to me, is creating all this speculative artwork in hopes that I can license it to somebody. Mm-hmm. And it's always the same themes, Christmas and this and that. It's like, and how do you wrap it up in a different way and then try to license it to somebody. I know it's a very competitive marketplace, but I also know a few people who've done very well at and are successful at doing it. So I think it's rewarding if you can manage to sell it. I have my fingers crossed right now. I'm talking to a company that has stores nationwide about the possibility of using my patterns on fabric. So cool. I'm hoping that if that goes through, that would be the best licensing thing I've ever done. But so far, I'm not sure. We'll see.
And it's also a good, if you're going to license something, it's good to have that attorney that you work with that is going to have your best interest in mind. I probably wouldn't do a big licensing deal without somebody who knows that part. Would you?
I would definitely have them review whatever contract, sure. I'm not. A lot of companies will use boilerplate kind of contracts, and one thing people don't realize is if somebody sends you a contract, it's not just you sign it or you decide not to sign it. You can go through and change things how you want it to be worded, or whether or not you're a lawyer or not. And so I've gone into contracts that agencies have sent me, and I've changed stuff or I deleted stuff. I go, I don't want that in there. And then I just kind of assume that they realize that, and I sent it back. We all signed it. The project's over with, and then they get mad at me for something. I go, what are you talking about? Well, that was in the contract. I go, no, I removed that from the contract. And you didn't read it? You didn't sign? You signed it. You know, aren't you reading? I thought that's what a contract is. You read it. You agree to it. And if you don't, you make a call out, or because I removed all this language they had about stupid restrictions. I go, no, I'm not going to. And so there wasn't. Man, they got upset at me, but I don't know. It's their ignorance. So,
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Kevin has a question. I always like to get everybody's questions before mine necessarily, so maybe we'll just have to do a part 2, Vaughn. But so Kevin says, I have your Creative Freedom T-shirt. Do you see custom T-shirt designs as a decent revenue model?
I had a company approach me about 5 years ago. 2 investors. They wanted to start a T-shirt company, and the first thing I told them after I heard all their information was, this is a horrible investment. I go, look, I could say, great, I'll brand you, we'll do this, but I'm telling you right now, you're probably not going to be successful. And they still did it anyway, and I branded them, and it hasn't done that well. And it's a really, if there's any one market that's hard to really get a foothold in terms of growing and being successful, it would be sportswear. It's because as soon as somebody hits on something that's popular, every single screen printer in the country is jumping on it.
Right.
So and I say that because the first job I had out of art school was for a screen printer. The second job I had was for a large sportswear company where we were developing lines for Target and Nordstrom's and a bunch of different places. So it's really competitive. I really happen to like the Cotton Bureau. I like how they handle T-shirt stuff. So I'll upload stuff or send it in every now and then just to do one of those. But it's an interesting model. If you like doing T-shirts, I say do it, but like doing books, there's no Grishams when it comes to design books, and there's no, you're not going to make a huge coin off of T-shirts either.
Right, kind of like band merchandise. It's the same sort of thing. A lot of times there's, well, I mean, depending on the size of the band, I guess. But so Eric said about Eric, sorry, not Eric, sorry. He was saying something else. Back on using client contracts, he says, isn't it our responsibility to walk them through whatever changes we make? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I didn't delete the type. I just put a strike through it, and it's like, and I just, it was a Word document, so I turn on what do you call it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't.
if they open it, it says, here's the changes so-and-so have made, and I just assume they were paying attention, and they weren't, so.
Right. And it's a bartering thing, so it's like you're at the car dealership. You get to decide back and forth. The contract's not just a contract, and you're always able to make your own and send it to them and try to find something in between. So one last question from Lee says, as a more mature designer myself, my priorities in life have shifted. Has what you consider important in life changed over the years, and does it affect how you prioritize your time and the type of work that you do?
Yes. I was, earlier in my career, I was concerned about, working with, I want to work with this company or that company, and I've gotten to a point now where I almost prefer working for small business owners because it's fun to create something that's on the same level as like a multinational, but it's helping a small business owner. And it's fun to see how they respond to how the public responds to what they're doing after they get that. It's almost like they're surprised, like, I didn't know somebody could actually like my logo, or whatever. So that's changed a lot. In regards to, I work out of my home studio, so I've always had the benefit of my kids being able to come in pretty much whenever they wanted to. So I've enjoyed that. My daughters are of the age now where they're getting ready to probably move out on their own and stuff. So I'm not sure if this is answering the question, but the flexibility, I guess, is what I like the most, and that's what I value the most. And so my time is, it's always been trying to balance it with, there's people make the difference between you have work and you have life, and I don't know, I understand that, but I like thinking of it all as it's just one thing. And it's like I may be hanging out with the family, but in the back of my mind, an idea might be brewing, and it's not like I turn that off. It's just part of who I am now. So my wife didn't always understand that. But she understands it now, so she's okay with it. So I hope that answered the question.
You did great. You were awesome. You did an awesome job today. You answered tons of questions. We got to number 3 on mine, so that's terrific. We had 14. Oh well. Next time, hopefully. But I just want to share other ways, and we had a lot of other questions in the chat that I wasn't able to get to. So sorry for everybody who I couldn't. But I'm going to share. This is I've shared your website. This is your skills-based design courses. And then I had shared your Twitter, or your Instagram and Twitter, I think they're 2 different. But at Vonster, if you want to follow him on Twitter. And then and he put his own email there, so Lenny's asking for a part 2. We'll get in touch, Vaughn. But I just want to thank you so much. You did awesome. I really enjoyed it. I think the chat was like blowing up the whole time, so I really, really am thankful. And if you guys have any questions for me, you can always find me at diane@designrecharge.org, or you can check out more other past episodes at rechargingyou.com, and I'm going to pop that up. So, Vaughn, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for sharing a little bit of your process and your insight into your business with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, guys. I'll see you next week. It was supposed to be Dustin Lee, but he's going to be the week after. So it'll be a rapid recharge, and I can't remember what it's supposed to be about. So I'll fill you in and hope to see you guys next week. Thanks.